On April 23, 1910, US President Theodore Roosevelt delivered a rousing speech at the University of Paris. The speech has the title of Citizen in a Republic, and one notable passage from the speech is referred to as the man in the arena. The passage is as follows: "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." In the immediate timeline of everyday life and politics, it is our willpower, vision, and foresight, along with acting in accordance with the current or future turning of cyclical history, that ultimately dictates success or failure. Most people are kept in the dark, completely unaware of cyclical history, and hence are very reactive to things as they unfold. But as always, there are leaders and prominent figures who often represent the desired archetype of the next turning before it becomes common knowledge or is necessarily needed. This appears to be where the saying, "they were before their time," comes from. It is those people who often go down in history and are later revered. Thomas Carlyle referred to history itself as the Biography of Great Men in his widely respected book On Heroes, Hero Worship, and the Heroic in History, published in 1841. Detailed within the book, Carlyle delivered a series of 6 lectures pertaining to the important roles that heroes and heroism play and have played throughout life and history. He maintained that contrary to the belief of lesser individuals, the time does not make the hero. If that were the case, then in a time of significant crisis, there would be any number of truly heroic figures who are prominent in the hour of need. And if it were that simple, then what stops the average man from stepping up to the plate and fulfilling his supposed heroic potential? The time of crisis does not in turn create the hero. It is not a given occurrence, as sure as night follows day. If there is a lack of valor within a people, and particularly a lack of harnessed virility within the men of that people, then it is quite possible no one will stand up and everyone will just defer responsibility instead. The time of crisis is merely an opportunity for a hero to emerge. Hence, the willingness to perform a self-imposed or state-imposed duty when others would cower in the face of such hardship is what makes the hero unique. The hero seizes the opportunity to step out of the shadows of obscurity, often going above and beyond what is deemed possible. The true hero is engaged and animated by the challenges of life and welcomes the struggle against the harshness of reality. Furthermore, the Pareto Principle, or 80-20 rule, illustrates that despite attempts at alteration or equalization, the top 20% will naturally acquire 80% of what is measured. For example, the resources, talent, intelligence, ability, etc. Nowadays, the percentages may be closer to 90-10 or 95-5, but the principle remains the same. The cream will rise to the top, and if one takes a Machiavellian or amoral position, one could say that principle is justified. Once again, as per Machiavelli, the acquisition of power is all that matters. In his view, those deserving of supremacy will achieve it, regardless of ethical consideration. One may well argue that what is happening ought not to happen, but that doesn't necessarily stop it from happening. In a fatalistic sense, even attempting to stop it or reverse it will only mask the truth. As Carlyle said, it is the property of every hero in every time, in every place and situation, that he come back to reality, that he stands upon things and not shows of things, according as he loves and venerates, articulately or with deep speechless thought, the awful reality of things. So will the hollow shows of things, however regular or decorous, be intolerable and detestable to him. In a word, the hero is the embodiment of one thing, authenticity. This heroic authenticity may well be abundant within the Renaissance man. As a synonym for Renaissance is rebirth or revival, and when a culture is in decay, it needs revival if it is to continue. Hence, it is incumbent upon the polymath to fulfill their duty to champion any restoration of culture, and thus breathe life and passion back into a fallen people. Only the vanguard or intellectual culture minority can promote this, and others will follow when the culture has re-emerged. The intellectual minority know that this is their calling already, and if they still exist, they can leave a worthwhile legacy. Japanese author, poet, playwright, actor and film director Yukio Mishima wrote his 1969 book Runaway Horses and stated that to be thus a man was to give constant proof of one's manliness, to be more a man today than yesterday, more a man tomorrow than today. To be a man was to forge ever upward toward the peak of manhood, there to die amid the white snows of that peak. Then, if one were to extrapolate Mishima's quote back to Aristotle, or more particularly the abridged quote from Will Durant, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act but a habit," it becomes simple to see how these two observations can seamlessly entwine. If there is a constant need to prove one's manliness, then acts that accentuate this trait will need to be repeated and become habitual to eventually have any chance of achieving the outcome. A great man was always sincere as the first condition of him, but a man need not be great to be sincere. Thus, not everyone will be, can be, or wants to be heroic, but they can at least be sincere. It is hardly an exaggeration to say that in general, the modern man is not who he used to be when it comes to traditionally masculine virtues such as leadership, sense of duty, heroism, stoicism, and basic physical prowess. This is where, once again, the abolition of objective standards and expectations has a negative impact on the potential of the individual. Many will say that with strict objective standards comes unnecessary societal pressure and fear of failure. Yet in a sporting sense, pressure can be good. Performing under high pressure is a sign of quality. Adequate pressure instills measured focus within those who can handle it. The feeling of being at optimal arousal and in the zone only occurs when the athlete is present in the moment, sometimes subconsciously, and has risen to the standard, level, or intensity that is required to be successful within that moment. Many people in life are not widely known as successful people, and part of this relates to that inability or unwillingness to accept or reach society's objective expectations, and thus the standards of what success is. Much like pressure, fear of failure can also be redirected and utilized in a more positive fashion. To put it simply, Samuel Beckett said it best: "Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better." However, upon closer inspection, one must admit that long-term cultural survival appears doubtful. The West is suffering from spiritual paralysis. Instead, individually we are filled with narcissism and egoism, yet with little personal achievement to permit such feelings. There is also an undoubted sense of cultural malaise, of stagnation and fatigue. Traditionalists and conservatives alike are longing for a return to the lessons of history and a respect for all that has happened, be it good or bad. If we know our history, we know ourselves. Regardless of subjective concepts of morality or political disposition, history illustrates for us that while there is much to regret, there is also much to be genuinely proud of. Those who record history into written form and treat it with great admiration do us all an immeasurable service. Those who wish to dismantle or destroy the previous records of history are doomed to repeat it, whether they know it or not. If we don't know where we have been, we won't know where we are going. Herein lies the importance of books and the essential skill of literacy. As renowned Scottish philosopher, essayist and historian Thomas Carlyle once said, "In books lies the soul of the whole past time, the articulate, audible voice of the past, when the body and material substance of it has altogether vanished like a dream. All that mankind has done, thought, gained or been is lying magic preservation in the pages of books. They are the chosen possession of men." Universities, which arose in society while there were yet no books procurable, are no longer the bastions of open discussion and knowledge that they once were. Nowadays, in many ways, students are not challenged but coddled. Frankly speaking, tertiary education is meant to teach us how to read a greater breadth of material. But as Carlyle rightfully declares, the place where we get the knowledge, even theoretical knowledge, is the books themselves. It depends on what we read. After all manner of professors have done their best for us, the true university of these days is a collection of books. If you can read widely, you can think critically, and it is initial thought which can lead to action. If all that we do and bring to existence starts with a thought, then what is Western civilization but a thought, but many thoughts into one? A huge spirit of a thought that is superpersonal in nature, embodied by what art critic John Ruskin described as the three manuscripts that define great nations: the book of their deeds, the book of their words, and the book of their art. Architecture can also be viewed in this way. Different cultures have different ontological spirits. The Western ontology resembles that of Goethe's Faust, who sacrificed spiritual values for power, knowledge, and material gain. Yet in doing so, he pushed for the infinite and had boundless ambition. Dynamic and becoming rather than static and being or having become. This sense of becoming is the fire in the belly. This is Nietzsche's will to power. This is the thumos of the ancient Greeks. This is synonymous with the West.